like to begin the Committee of the Whole meeting on November 10th, 2020 at 9:14 p.m. Present are all members of council, the mayor, law director, finance director, human resources director, our council clerk, and our guests this evening. To start with, I would like, Mayor, I know that you have submitted a name to City Council to be the Director of Service. Council members have indicated that they wanted to get more information from you about your overall plan for the safety and service departments. So if you could please give Council an overview of that at this time.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. Just by way of history, when I first took office in 2010, my idea was to combine the safety and service director's position and make that one position, and to eliminate the community life services division, which oversaw Rec Springvale and I believe the senior center. And Law Director Garreau advised me that that you couldn't do that because they're in the charter. So I had to go to the voters and ask the voters to take the director's positions out of the charters. The voters overwhelmingly supported that issue, and so then I hired a safety service director and eliminated the community life services director. So my appointment of Jack Grasso to be director of service, you know, he's highly qualified. He's been in the service department. He's been a foreman on jobs. He's also been a foreman at the gas company. Great leadership skills and people skills, and he's really eager for the challenge. So I really feel like there's a lot to concentrate on service, and I want him concentrating on service. We also have two very strong professional chiefs that are capable of running their departments on a day-to-day tasks. If something would to come up, they have access to all my directors. They talk to the directors all the time, whether it's an HR issue, a finance issue, and anything out of their scope, I would be able to handle per the organizational chart. It comes up to me anyway. So I would, at this point, want Jack to concentrate on service and reevaluate after the election, the next election. But I would have no plans on hiring a safety director.
Thank you, Director Garreau.
Thank you. Just to expound upon the mayor's description of what's happening. So when you saw the memo the other day, it indicated that there'd be legislation coming forward to the council, and that legislation will be coming next week for council's authorization to allow that position to remain unfilled on a going forward basis till the end of the term. You will recall that that all directors' terms expire with the mayor's term, and then everybody has to be reappointed. So the question came about if that was to leave that position empty or vacant, how would we go about doing that? And the way to do it would be to present it to you folks for your concurrence. Should you choose not to vote to approve that, well then the mayor will have his answer and he'll have to proceed accordingly. But the proper way to do that would be to present that question to you guys for your consideration. So I wanted to make it clear that that the mayor is not the safety director. The mayor is not permitted to be the safety director by the org chart and by the charter. In the event of a vacancy, some of those responsibilities would percolate up to the mayor's level, being the head of the ultimate head of the city. But it's not an attempt to say the mayor is the safety director. We're going to come to you. There'll be a piece of legislation, and it'll be council either approving that request or not, and then we'll go from there. So the mayor, when you say safety service director previously, just remember there are two departments. They are two separate. It could be two people or it could be one person. The title is not safety service director. Technically, Don Glauner was the director of public safety and the director of public service. Those are two different departments, but just so happened to be that one person held both titles. So the mayor's permitted to make an appointment to one who doesn't necessarily have to be appointed to the other at this point in time. So, but that's the long answer, long comment. The main takeaway is that there'll be legislation presented to you folks. The request has been submitted for your consideration at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from council? Councilman Glassburn.
Thank you, Madam President. I guess with the background of our previous service director / safety director being predominantly on the safety side, it does beg the question, did we not need a safety director previously? How will these responsibilities be fulfilled? Why don't we need one moving forward? So if the mayor, I guess, would like to address those.
Yeah, well, first of all, like you said, you have two professional chiefs in the police department and fire department. They handle the day-to-day business, and they also have access to the directors. Again, any HR issue, they would go directly to Marie. Finance issue, they would go to Carrie, and any issues that might arise, they can go directly to me.
So, Madam President, if I may continue.
Maybe I'd answer your question better by saying I wouldn't hire a separate person to do that, and I really want Jack to concentrate on the service end of things.
I don't mean to come off as argumentative, but I genuinely don't understand with Mr. Glonner having been a safety professional. That was the heavy emphasis previously. So this is a signal of we're doing a
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
emphasis. I'm sorry, is this meaning you like we're going to be looking to do a heavier emphasis on the service department, or it's a systemic change, and that's I'm trying to get at how things will change and be different, because since the previous person occupied the role not being filled predominantly, it suggests that there's going to be something different.
Well, first of all, Don was a police officer, but he was also the service director in Westlake, so he had good experience in both. And all my safety and service directors since the change in the charter had been, whether it be Lisa Thomas, Chase Rittenauer, Scott Thomas, they were the safety director and the service director. In this case, I think we have a lot of issues in service, a lot of stuff that we really need to get done. And I've taken this opportunity to meet with all the foremen, meet with all the workers in service, and I realize there's some real talent there. I think Jack's going to do a great job, but I want him just to focus on that.
Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since the police and fire chief are very well qualified and do their own thing, sort of, I guess to say, why would we not have this new person also, do the safety portion, because there wouldn't really be a lot of time spent on it, it doesn't sound like, and that really then fills the dual role that you had intended always and seemed very much to want. So I don't know why, that person wouldn't, have that job as well. Unless.
Simply because I want him to concentrate solely on service.
And I get that. So it would be an 80-20, right? Or 70-30. I mean, is that not enough?
I want him to give 100% to service.
I see. Michael and Mr. Rogers, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, may I?
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Thank you. So our charter then says that, tell me what our charter says, that this person can be both, one, the other. It prohibits the mayor from holding either of those. Exactly what does it say?
The charter says nothing about safety and service directors. That was removed in the charter amendments back in 2010, I think. The charter does not permit the mayor to hold any other office within the city of North Olmsted. So the mayor cannot serve as the safety director. But as I've said before, some of the duties that would percolate up to his position in the event of an absence doesn't necessarily make him the safety director. It's just a statement that some of those responsibilities would default to the mayor. in an absence, in any absence. The mayor, if you have an absence at any director level, and sometimes you may have somebody out of town or unavailable, the mayor's going to assume those responsibilities. So there is nothing that says that the mayor, there's nothing that says that well, I think that answered your question. There's nothing in the charter that sets forward the two positions. That's why he can come to you with an ordinance and say, listen, I'd like to leave this empty, and let those responsibilities be handled by the police chief and the fire chief. It's kind of worth noting too that historically in North Olmsted, there was a time when the Division of Public Safety included building, it included rec, it included other divisions within which there was not a professional
Yep.
person.
I'm not challenging why it was changed. I'm just asking what the charter currently says. So thank you. And Madam Chair, I have one more question that I'm about to forget the question. So, you know, when there was a safety service director, for example, you know, I would go as a council person to that person and say, can you get me this information or look into this or that through Chuck? Or, you know, sometimes if it was, you know, pretty critical and or sensitive thing, I might just ask myself directly. And now, you know, there's no buffer person, so I have to go to the mayor. I can or cannot, you know, go to the chiefs. I mean, what's the structure then if that position is vacant? Meaning that there's no buffer, right? Mr. Grow or mayor?
Well, I don't think anything would prohibit you from either directing the question if it's a safety related matter to the fire chief, the police chief, or you could direct it to the mayor, who can certainly assist in that capacity as well. Not any one of those three would work. And frankly, the staff that they have within the Department of Safety and Service, the two folks we have working over there are pretty good about being able to work out some of the concerns or questions and ferret out some of the answers that you might need, even at this time. So with a vacancy, they've been running with a vacancy for the past 2 months, and the people that are over there do a pretty good job of getting to the bottom of things and getting you information that you need, I think.
Thank you.
Madam Chairwoman, yeah, if there's anything you or any other council person needs, it could be handled by myself or either one of the chiefs.
Councilman Schuman.
Just one comment. I think Renee is an awesome resource, and she's not going anywhere. I'm assuming that. I mean, she's there to assist both chiefs, right? Fire and police, and she's there also for us.
Absolutely.
So as far as having a buffer, she's close as you're going to get to a buffer. So thank you.
Councilman Glassburn.
So I try to avoid using employee names, but I don't know her specific title. But so we're going to retain the administrative underlying structure for a position we don't intend to fill. Is that because we intend to fill it in 22, or do we see future changes down the road?
I would hope that that Jack would be able to fill that, but I just want him to concentrate on service at this point.
Councilman Glassburn, is your question who will the safety administrative assistant report to?
I guess in part. I mean, you don't normally have administrative assistants for people that don't exist, right? And I'm not saying they don't have work to do. I'm just saying it implies that either you're going to fill the position long term, or those are going to be people that have different roles moving forward. To leave a position open for 2 months is one thing. To structurally plan to do it for a year and maybe beyond that is a different thing, Madam President.
Yes, I understand. I mean, Mayor, can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, she would report to me.
Councilwoman Heeman.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. That is what I wanted to know. I understood Mr. Glassman's question. I did not understand the response, the mayor's response. But he made that clear that he has, you know, a new reporting structure for the administrative assistant as well. Thank you.
Councilman Glassburn.
Thank you, Madam President. I promise I'm down to 2 questions left. The first of which is, so council needs to approve this structural change. In the event that either council doesn't approve the gentleman nominated, or he finds other employment and decides to stay where he's at or take another job, would this change still be the structure we would be looking to do moving forward regardless of this individual, or is it specific to this individual? And if we did not make an arrangement between us and him, would we be back to a new conversation about the structure?
Mayor or Dr. Guerrero?
I mean, this sounds like a mayor question, but
Yeah.
but
What's the question again? If we don't, I'm sorry.
If for some reason the council was not to approve the nominee for the service director position, or he backed out of the job, or he found another job, whatever prevented that deal from moving forward, if he individually is not chosen and accepts the position, would we still be going forward with this new structure?
I would have to reevaluate at that time. I don't know.
Okay.
But certainly I want the concentration to be on service.
Okay. My last question is, Madam President, is what process? What process did we use, or did we post this, or how did we come to this specific nominee? Did employees inside the current operation have a chance to apply, or were they aware of it? Just so that we know that, so we're not asking the interviewee these questions that really aren't suited for him.
Madam President, if I
Go ahead,
could. Yeah, I've reached out to my sources, and I interviewed 2 people for this position, Jack being one of them, and Jack is who I picked.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Are there any, Councilwoman Heeman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mayor, not to really press you, but sources are vague, right? So did we go to him? Did he come to us? He was referred to us. I mean, obviously he worked for the city. So how?
Right.
Advertise for candidates? I guess
I did not advertise for candidates, Madam President.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Yeah, I did not advertise for candidates. I talked to people that have been mayors and former mayors and asked for any good candidates that they know of. I found another good candidate as well as Jack, and I interviewed both of them, and Jack was the guy I chose.
Any further questions regarding these positions at this time? Councilman Glassburn.
I apologize. This is the last a question for Director Guerrero, and I may have misunderstood what he said earlier. Looking back at the 2010 change that was implemented, it looked like we had to, in order to abolish or create these positions, the council had to approve. Do on a technical basis, we have to approve the change prior to doing the selection of the service director? Am I making sense?
But, well, let me see if I understand this. Madam President, if I may, thank you.
Go ahead.
I think, so the mayor, there's 2 issues going on here. There's 2 votes that you're going to take. There's going to be one, in theory, there's going to be 2 votes no matter what. There would be 2 votes, 1 vote to fill the position of Director of Public Safety. In theory, you could also be taking the separate vote to fill the position of Public Service. But in this instance, he's going to come to you. He's not telling you what he's going to do. He's asking you for authorization to do it. So I want to make that clear. This isn't the mayor by fiat directing that this is what's going to happen with safety. This is up to you guys. If you tell him no, then he's going to have to come up with another plan. The only thing that's being given to you right now to vote on affirmatively is the position of Director of Public Service. So there's that. There is no safety nominee at this point in time, and they're separate. So they were kept that way on purpose in the ordinances to give flexibility to whoever it is down the road. There's the approval that you're going to be granting is going to be in voting on that other ordinance. And you also would be, of course, filling the position. So I don't know if I answered that question, perhaps I misunderstood.
The concern I have, Madam President, is just that whether it's this gentleman or anyone else, that we don't put anybody through the ringer of interviewing them, and then for some reason we don't approve the second half of it and it nullifies and we cause problems for the individual. I just want to make sure we do this in the right order. If this is the direction the council wants to go, so that we start on a good foot with whoever are the person or persons that fill these positions and don't run them through the ringer.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think we're a good footing there. That the issue, and it's kind of important to recognize that there are two different departments and there are two different department heads. It just so happens that one person can hold both titles, and if you think of it that way, he's only being nominated for one of those positions. So no, the safety component of it isn't reflective upon his current nomination. His only nomination is for the Director of Public Service at this point in time, and that's it. The other question will be decided by you with the ordinance and what you guys want to do with it. Again, if you approve it, then we'll proceed as presented. If you deny it, then the mayor will have to come to you with a nomination for you to vote on. Whoever that person may be, it might be the same person, I don't know. But either way, you're going to get a say one way or the other, pursuant to the code. Did that answer your question?
Yes. So, Madam President, my suggestion would be that, again, if there's any conditionality in any council members' minds, that we address the item that does not involve interviewing first as we move forward with this, so that we don't put anybody needlessly through any processes if for some reason there's a hiccup in the system.
Yes, agreed. Councilman Limpert.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just got a question. Do the police and fire chief, have they been informally or formally talked about this change, and are you confident that they're gonna be able to absorb the administrative role of safety director as it relates to legislation and getting that and checking those resolutions and ordinances that require to come before council? I know when we had the just from like the golf course and recreation, there's a lot of administrative things that we've had to do suspension on. So I just want to make sure that with this change, that those individuals are comfortable to know what those calendar timelines are from contractually or equipment or other administrative requirements to be able to complete those under their duties.
I'm confident the chiefs do. I've talked to them extensively about this. We meet often, talk often, and they're fine with this.
Okay.
Any additional questions or comments from council? Councilwoman Heeman and then Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I would prefer, to take care of the housekeeping issue of, hiring one or both, or I sat and wondered until tonight, of course, like, oh, so what was happening to the other half of the job, or what was, and I actually felt it awkward that we did not know what the intention was. That we were just provided a candidate and no other information. So I would really prefer to address, the offering of, are we hiring one, both, and get those ordinances out of the way before an interview process, I think is just respectful to the candidate. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor,
Madam President.
sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Graham.
I would point out you do have an affirmative duty to interview and vote on his, you don't even have to interview, but you have an affirmative responsibility to vote on his nominee. So you can't necessarily put it off for long. I understand the concept that you want to deal with the safety service issue, but the issue that's currently before you is the nomination that's been placed before you that you have to vote on. It's not a matter, you should do your due diligence, you should do your interviews, but it's something that needs to be done with expeditiously.
Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you, Mr. Grohl. With all due respect, this doesn't seem like it was all, full front and center at the same time. And so while I don't think that, interviews would wait a long time, if this legislation is coming next week, I'm just shocked, I suppose, that it wasn't at the same time. I really, I'm not happy with that, to be honest with you. It seemed like one piece was dragging back, and that is actually the piece we needed first. Thank you.
We did put in the memo at the end that legislation would be coming with respect to the safety director's position. It was I believe it was in the memo telling you that Jack Grasso had been nominated.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Go ahead,
Mr.
Councilwoman.
That is true, that it was, almost like like a little side thing that, oh, and by the way, there'll be something else coming, but we really didn't know what that was, and nor are you permitted to tell us prematurely what legislation you're working on. So I am not blaming you or, faulting. I'm just saying that, since it had been the mayor's preference in the charter change to make the positions combined, with no discussion of why that was not going to happen, I think that it was unfair, to potentially put the candidate first and make things awkward. Thank you.
I just want to clarify the positions were not combined. One person occupied two positions. The positions are distinct.
Mayor.
Hey, Madam President, if I could, I'd just ask council that we want to, if Jack gets an affirmative vote, that would be great. But we would like to get him on board before the snow starts flying. So if you could do that, that'd be great. I appreciate it.
Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mayor, you should have probably been rolling with this as soon as you knew that Director Glahner was retiring. He gave you quite a good notice, and we didn't hear a whisper until I pressed the issue. So I don't think the burden is on us now to rush where we might not be comfortable, when in fact months have gone by and there was not even a piece of information coming forward about what your search was or wasn't going to be, or that you were actively searching. So I appreciate that you want that, but I think we all have to work together a little better. Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, now we're going to move on to the topic of elected officials' salaries being set for the next 4 years after next year's election. I know that there was some discussion about waiting to review these and make these decisions possibly until next year. But council has had a history of passing the legislation earlier rather than later. And I think it's important that we continue in that tradition. Hopefully things don't get financially worse for our city in the coming months, but if it does, we can adjust the salaries with the new legislation prior to the required deadline, as the law director pointed out at our last committee of the whole meeting. A lot of city employees have been furloughed this past year, and city employees are not getting a cost of living adjustment this year. So I do think it's important that we send a message to our employees and the taxpayers as far as what we're looking to do to set those salaries. So in order to try and expedite this last portion of our meetings tonight, I'd like to begin by opening the discussion up to council members or members of the administration, elected members of the administration, with any thoughts or proposals. I know that our clerk has indicated that Councilman Kelly had a proposal that he wanted to bring up this evening. And so unless there's objection, I'll go to Councilman Kelly.
Thank you, Madam President. So the bargaining units, and I believe now even maybe the non-bargaining, they're looking at 0, 2.5, 2.5 over the next 3 years. So our ordinance, I believe, would have to go for 4 years. Is that correct? For this 4 years, okay. So my proposal would be, because we don't know what's going to happen yet with all this COVID issue going on, that we'd be looking at possibly 0, 0, 2.5, 2.5. And that would be my proposal.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Limpert.
Hey, just one comment to bring up, because I didn't think of it originally until I thought a little bit more. So this salary ordinance, while we're talking about the end of this year, doesn't go into effect until 2022. So that would be, we're talking 2022 and 2023 as far as thinking about COVID and, you know, Pfizer's 90% effective vaccine, et cetera. Just throwing that out there because, and I think, Mr. Kelly, I think that's a valid proposal. I just want to make sure that everybody's in line with the timeframes that this would entail. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Councilman Limpert. Any thoughts, Councilman Glassburn?
Thank you, Madam President. I agree with Councilman Kelly's assessment of the dual zeros. While we have the bargaining units taking a 0 next year, you know, we did furloughs and other emergency measures this year. So I think it's important to recognize that it was a 2-year window that we're likely to see sacrifices being made by our employees. And I think this is the closest approximation we can make. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam President. One thing that I would request from council is that in the final year, I would like to see it at 2%, not 2.5. And the reason I say that is because we're going to be negotiating, and bargaining units will look at 2.5, and elected officials are getting paid 2.5, and they're going to want 2.5 for sure. And we'd like to get things back to 2. It's a good spot to at least start at. You never know how it's going to end up, but that's my only suggestion.
Thank you. And additional questions or comments, Councilman Limpert?
Yeah, I mean, given that thought, to me, it's like a 0, 1, 2, 2, and or 0, 1, 2.5, 2, and you kind of ramp it up and ramp it back down, and you're covered and you're back to 2%. And at the same time, you're, you know, assuming that 2 years from now, we'll have adjusted whatever our budgetary implications are from the COVID perspective. So that's just another option then, given the mayor's comments.
Councilman Schuman.
I don't have a problem with council going 0, 0, but I think, you know, we have some professional elected people that are full-time. And I think the finance director, the law director is technically part-time, but I believe he works full-time at this. And of course, the mayor, I think we should keep their salaries closer to what we're doing with the full-time folks at City Hall. I think I'd be more comfortable with that. As far as council goes, I mean, you know, this isn't going to change our lives at all, but it could have an impact on those people that are full-time. Just a thought. Thank you.
Councilman Schuman, you're right. We could absolutely, council can separate out if they so choose, the administrative elected positions and then versus the council ward seats and the council president seat. There's nothing that says that we have to do this in, that everyone has to follow the same formula, I guess is the best way to put it. Councilman Limpert.
I didn't have, sorry, I'm on, not
Oh,
muted.
I thought I saw, I'm sorry, it's Councilwoman Heeman. I apologize. I was looking at waving hands. I apologize.
Thank
She
you,
wears
Madam
glasses,
Chair. Thank you. I have no comment about that. Madam Chair, thank you. I agree that we don't have to do this in lockstep, but we do have full-time employees that we furloughed, and consideration wasn't given to them whether they were full-time or not full-time, whether they had kids or no kids. We just did say what we had to do, and that was sad. I mean, nobody to do that, and so I would not want to think that they would have the impression that our leadership wasn't willing to do some of those same things with not taking raises and that sort of thing. So I would be in favor of lockstep rather than segregating. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Schuman.
And just, and I could be wrong about this, but perhaps Director Gallo could help me with it. It's my understanding that even though we furloughed folks, they still got 20%, I'm sorry, they still got 50% of their pay. And most of the folks were made whole by the unemployment. Isn't that correct?
So we furloughed employees, most of the employees down to 20 hours. They were able to qualify. There were a couple of employees that actually reduced their hours so that they would qualify. So a lot of the employees were made whole by unemployment and the extra $600, but they did lose time in the pension system during that time.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that.
Mm-hmm.
Additional proposals on the table? Councilman Limpert.
I just want to make one last comment because, when I first came onto council, I was one of the large proponents of looking to adjust the percentages or reducing them. And I think the mayor, I've learned through experience that not only can it impact as far as the bargaining units for the raise size, but it also sets the tone of concern for those of if we're taking a large reduction that could impact them as well. So I think keeping it consistent with what the expectations are and that what we can manage and afford is important. So, that being said, I just think we need to look at it from both perspectives because that was something that I certainly didn't do when I first came on council. So thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Schuman.
So, all right, I'll go ahead and make a proposal that we, I would stay with Mr. Kelly's suggestion for council 0, 0, 2.5, 2. I believe that's what you're proposing. And then for the directors, I would say 0, 2.5, 2.5, 2. I think that'll make them, keep them in whole, and then they'll have 2 for the last year. That way, when we're negotiating, they'll have a 2% raise. I think that makes sense. That'd be my proposal.
Councilman Kelly.
Just so we're clear on, my first proposal was 0, 0, 2.5, 2.5, not 2 at the end. The mayor had asked for the 2. That, just to clarify that.
Councilman Limpert.
Yeah, and I guess my proposal then, based on the mayor's thought process, which I think makes sense to try to support the administration in their bargaining position, to do a 0, 1, 2.5, 2. And given that that one is in 2023, the year 2023.
Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director Gallo, do we traditionally take our union contracts, up and then down? Do we ever really say to them, you're going to get 2.5 and then we're taking you back down?
I will have to double check, but I believe this last contract went down 0.5% this year. So last year was 2.5 and this year was 2, but let me double check that.
But I mean, in the same negotiation cycle, that's what I'm really looking for in the same. Carrie's going, yeah, we do. So that's so.
The last cycle it was.
The last
2.5,
3 years.
2.5, 2.
Yes.
Okay.
The last 3 years, it went down in the final year, but I will double check that and get the information.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so it looks like we have a few proposals on the table. 0, 0, 2.5, 2.5, a 0, 0, 2.5, and a 2, and then a 0, 1, 2.5, and 2. Any council members who haven't weighed in yet want to indicate if they feel strongly one way or the other about any of these? Councilman Broussard.
Thank you, Madam President. I think they're all quite similar. So, it's almost a 6 of one, half dozen of another scenario. And I don't have a preference, but other than perhaps the 2 zeros, the first 2 years would be my preference. After that, I really don't have a preference. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Madam President.
So, yes, Councilman
I
Lippert.
withdraw my proposal and support Councilman Schumann's proposal.
So that gives about 2 members who are looking at the Councilman, correct me if I'm wrong, 0, 1, 2.5, 2.
No, 0, 0, 2, 2.5, 2.
0, 0.
Agree with Mrs. Heeman that that's a lot of numbers in my proposal.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry,
Councilman
Madam President.
Mhm.
So yeah, 0, 0, 2.5, 2 for council, 0, 2.5, 2.5, 2 for the directors and the mayor for the other elected officials.
Director Gallo.
I just want to confirm that the last contract cycle, the first year was 2.5, the second year was 2.5, and the third year was 2.
Thank you. All right. How do council members feel about separating out the council pay from the 3 elected administrative pays? Councilman Kelly and then Councilwoman Heeman.
I think they should be in lockstep. I don't think they should be separated, in my opinion. Thank you.
Madam Chair, that was Mr. Broussard that had his hand up, but I'll go after him if you don't mind.
I'm sorry. When people leave the meeting, you all switch your position. Wait a minute, you were over there and your hand was not up, but now it's up. Okay, thank you for letting me know. Councilman Broussard and then Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you. We're trying some smoke and mirrors with you, and it appears to be working. I actually have a slight preference to separating the 2.
Okay, and Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you. I am in favor of lockstep.
Okay. All right, Councilman Glassburn, and then Councilman Lippert.
I'll add the vote to lockstep.
I will say to separate and leave circle for Councilwoman Williamson to get the win.
Congratulations.
I abstain.
Council Jones.
An abstention is a yes, I think, according to Robert's rules.
I abstain. I don't want, the pressure is too much.
Well,
So
let me put it this way. So the reason I'm asking these questions and trying to come up with a consensus tonight is so that we can direct the clerk to put in a legislative request on behalf of council. We are not, whatever is decided tonight as far as percentages and that type of thing, that is actually going to be put in a piece of legislation, and then it will be handed over to the finance committee. The finance committee will have their committee meetings on it, and just like how we do it every 4 years when we do this process. So this is not the end of the discussion, or I'm not holding you to any type of like, well, you said this or you proposed this. I was just trying to flush out in a really open and transparent way, how we feel about these issues. And I really want to make sure that council votes on this though this year. And I want to make sure that we do this with, not under suspension, that we're having the full 3 readings. So don't feel, Councilwoman Williamson, that you're you're making a groundbreaking vote right now. I mean, this is just more, honestly, it's more for myself to kind of figure out where to guide this legislation when I ask for it on behalf of council.
thank you, Madam President. But you are the one who breaks the ties, right? No, I'm kidding.
But you're present, so.
So we've consistently kept them together, correct?
Yes.
So then I would say then that's where I would go. If I had to choose right now. So thank you.
Madam President, I didn't know that Councilman Schuman would be bringing a guest. That might sway my vote.
How could you not vote for this dog? Look at that. What a face.
All right. So what I'm at this point, what I think I will do then is request on behalf of council that we have a proposal, a legislative request drawn up in the fashion of for salaries, setting salaries at 0, 0, and if council, if you feel comfortable with 2.5 and then a jump down to 2, why don't we have that as our launching pad for this legislation for the council members. And it looks like at this point that that there's a majority of council who would like to proceed with this for all, but again, we can separate those two. We can separate from the council positions and the elected administrative positions if council so chooses, then in the finance committee. So if there's no objection, traditionally this type of legislation is sponsored by all members of council. So if anyone wishes to not be a sponsor of this legislation, if you could just let our clerk know before Friday, like noon on Friday, when he has to submit the legislative request, that would be helpful.
Mr. Schuman, is the dog a sponsor or not? Mr. Kelly, we are.
Dog is clueless.
Why is everyone else's dog nice and mine like is jumping in the pictures usually and barking at me?
I literally looked away from Mr. Schuman, looked down at Mr. Keller, saw the same dog for a second, and said, "How did he pass him the dog?"
How did you do that?
All right. So unless anyone else wants to, oh, there's Angela's. Anyone else want to bring a favorite pet to the forefront at this point? Seeing none, we will conclude our committee of the whole meeting at 10:05 p.m. Thank you.